Recording is in progress. Good. It takes a lot of extra effort to put together a Zoom and in-person meeting. It also takes money. We don't have the money to buy some of the equipment we need, and it takes somebody being here at every meeting to get it set up and to make it work. Without a volunteer to do that, and without the money to buy it, the Zoom component isn't as good as it could be, and it's going to eventually move out. It's going to be done, and that is we're going to phase it out. The last thing that we are absolutely confident about is that we need to have more members taking over some of the duties of the guild. Excuse me. The smoke is gone, but the smoke left me with a mild case of bronchitis. My doctor tells me I'm not going to die from it, and that's always good news. But it does make me cough a bit. But we are going to need people to step up and take over some of the responsibilities. None of them, once you break them down into small jobs, are all that much. But we do need to see that. So that's the 5 things that I know that we're all confident about. So be aware of it. Watch for the emails. And I got a thumbs up over there. Is it working? It sounds like everybody can hear it. I want to ask everybody, are they hearing it on Zoom? So on Zoom, are you all hearing this okay? Give me your thumbs up or something. Yeah. They're all hearing this. Oh my. Good. Good. Okay, well, now I'm going to do something else. I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to turn this over to Terry, because Terry's going to do a show and tell. And looks like we have, what, 2? 3 items, and then...
All right, so for the last several years, I've been making a guitar. This is the first guitar that I've tried to make. It's a replica of a Les Paul 1959 Standard. Lots of these replicas are made. It's easy to find patterns to do it. The one thing I wanted to talk to you folks about, and perhaps invite some suggestions, is the finish. Early on, every step of this guitar has been intimidating for me. And I used to think, well, when I get the woodworking done, the guitar built, and to the step of finishing it, I'll be in good shape. Turns out that's not quite the case. The short story is that I wanted to do a spray lacquer finish on this. This is what Gibson did on these guitars. But I wanted to add color to the Honduran mahogany. That's the back of the guitar. So I fooled around with color a fair amount and came up with a strategy that I thought was quite clever. Turned out not to be so clever. But the strategy was to put color like trans tint into shellac and apply that colored shellac onto the guitar. The advantage, I thought, was that way you could build up to the color. You could try some things, try some other things. And I got to a color. I don't know if you can see the color very well. It's actually sort of an antique cherry red. And so then I moved on to the next step, which is doing the spray lacquer. That's a skill that requires a fair amount of practice, which I did not have. The net of all that was, after several coats of spray lacquer, after each coat, I'd have to sand off the imperfections. What has happened, I don't know if you can really see this, is that the sanding off of imperfections in the spray lacquer meant that I was, in some places, sanding into the layers of shellac, the layers of color. So I've ended up with these lighter marks, including on the edge and on the back. And so now the next step is to figure out what to do about that. It's unlikely I'll be able to add color over the lacquer and blend it in. A luthier's advice to me was sand it all off, start all over again. So if anyone has any suggestions about either developing the skill for spray lacquering or the issue that I'm faced with, uneven color underneath lacquer, I'd be interested in hearing about that.
I have never used lacquer.
Yeah.
I have no way to spray it other than sleeve leathers. I see what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
So,
beautiful
I mean, the
piece
odds
of
are
work.
simply I'm going to sand off all of the mahogany parts, which is in itself is not that big a deal. It's just a painful experience to sand off what you thought was going to work really well. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that.
I had the same experience using color and shellac. I thought I would do it in dyeing some wood on a project that I made not too long ago. And it was famously unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Because the moment I had to sand down the top finish to smooth it off,
Yeah.
to raise the
Yeah.
grain, the moment I did that, I got it white.
Yeah, yeah, that's what's happened here. I mean, to your point, the lesson is that coloring anything like a guitar by applying layers of colored shellac builds the color up. It doesn't dye the wood, doesn't go into the wood. So it makes it more susceptible to the problem of sanding into the color layers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Jerry, I'll have to repeat the question. I'm not sure the Zoom audience is here. When Dan asks the question, you might, or when anybody asks a question, you might want to just recap it.
Okay. So Dan's observation was he had a similar experience where he was applying layers of shellac, each one colored, and then had occasion to sand some of that away. And then you're sanding through your layers of color. And so you're losing that final top effect of color, same as I run into here.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we did the shop tour, whose shop did you go to last? You remember that?
Stephen Hatcher.
Doesn't he do a lot of work?
He does. I've been down to Stephen's a few times.
Okay.
And he's volunteered to help me. He helped me diagnose the problem that I'm describing to you tonight. But yeah, he's excellent. So he's a resource. Okay.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I gather it is Dan and a tray.
I need to get these. I need the headphones.
I'll just pass it.
This is a colonial style serving tray. It's not my own design. I stole this directly from Rough Cuts. Who was the guy in Rough Cuts? A long time ago. Anyway, it was I was watching it on TV and it looked like a really interesting thing to make. And so I saw the program a couple of times. Tommy McDonald. And so I saw it a couple of times and kind of wrote out the plans. This is the wood, I think the wood is Macquarie, but somebody else told me it was something different, and that's Lavoa. They're both African woods, but it doesn't finish very well. I did not do the inlay on the inside. That's that particular banding. I purchased that banding. There's a place in just outside of Philadelphia, has a very unique name. It's called inlayparts.com. And I bought the banding from them. The inlay on the side, I did do. This is copper wire and red and pink coral. It's a tulip. And this is a stylized tulip. This is the first one I made. I made another one very similar to this that I sent to my daughter. She lives in Pennsylvania, and the family she married into are Pennsylvania Dutch. And this is the fracture style. Fracture is the name of an art style that was very common with the Pennsylvania Dutch. And I've made her a couple of tables using that art form on it. The sides are compound angle joints. They're not particularly easy to cut. I was amazed at how difficult that they were. The nails are not really structural. They add a little structural element to it. Mostly the nails are decorative. They are antique style nails. Now the bottom, nails in the bottom are also antique style. These are structural. That is the way that this would have been built originally, is that it all would have been nailed together. This was the prototype that I made. I made one for my daughter. It's very similar to this, and made one for my daughter-in-law. It's also very similar to this. It helps in terms of practice if you do the same thing a couple of times. So I did this a couple of times. Today it has the function of sitting just inside of my front door, and all of my masks and keys and my wallet and everything else ends up falling into this. So the angles these are actually butted angles, which I also told was probably the hardest way to do a compound angle. I didn't know that, but that's it. The base, by the way, the wood is Macquarie. I think it's Macquarie. The base is actually walnut, but I veneered it. I put a strip. I used Baltic birch, and I put a strip around it to give me the edge, and then I veneered the top and the bottom of it, veneering over an applied edge, and the edge on this one was about a ½ inch. I believe it's a ½ inch wide, because the edge was designed to come all the way into the inside. Trying to do that and then veneer over it and not have anything show through, it was the real test of what I was trying to do on this. Because if it's not exactly flat, then that difference will telegraph right through your veneer. And it came out really well. I was real pleased with this. I did all three of them the same way. This is, I forget what this particular veneer is, but this is a walnut veneer I had left over from another project. And that's it. Are there any questions out there on Zoom? I can't hear any.
They may not be answering. I'm monitoring the chat line.
I'm Sandra. I have no questions.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to give this to Terry, and he has one now too.
Now I do get to wear the headphones.
You do? All right.
Yeah, what I brought was not a completed project, obviously, or even close to completed. And it's really more about my design technique, some of the things that I typically like to do when I design things and make them. And it's based on trying to learn at a, say, the least expensive possible way. Expensive in time and also expensive in materials. The inspiration for this, if you can see the thing here in the front, the silver thing, the inspiration is what the Japanese call a kadana tansu. The tansu is a chest or a box. The kadana tansu is a step chest. In real life, one of these would be as big as what it would take to have human steps go up. In other words, this is probably about 1/3 scale. This is going to be a small chest that will hang on the wall. And so that's what the inspiration was. I started building just cardboard, because cardboard is incredibly cheap. It's also something that you can fool with, throw away. You don't really have to feel like you have a big investment in materials or any of that kind of thing. And so you can let your imagination move, and you can look at a given piece and try to replicate it. And if you don't like that, try something else. And so the one thing I wanted to do was make a full-scale model so that I could at least take it to the part of our house where it's going to hang and hold it up there and say, is this going to work with the people who are going to have to live with it? And so that was kind of the first set of steps, pardon the pun. And what I ended up with is a 4-column thing. And one of the things that I was noodling around with in the drawing was and having trouble with is how to get this board, this is going to be a board, to join to this vertical right at the same place where this board does. Well, and I went back to the tansus that I see on the internet and that kind of thing. And in the Japanese tradition, none of those joints exist. The way they do it is they bring one board in here with a mortise and tenon, and they bring another board in above it, so that there is never any kind of battle between one and the other. The other reason that I make models and that kind of thing is because I like to stretch myself a little bit. I like to look at something and say, what can I do that I've never done before? And sometimes I do that, and sometimes I repeat myself. As Dan indicates here, you learn a lot too from doing multiples of things. Anyhow, this was kind of new, and I decided to make this kind of new, and I thought, well, okay, thousands and thousands of these tansus were made in the 18th and 19th century in Japan. What could I do that was different? Well, the one thing that I came upon was the idea of making it a curved front. And so it, I don't know if you can see that very well, but the front has a bow to it, about a 56-inch bow. And I'd never seen that done. And so I thought, well, okay, I've never seen it done. I wonder how I'd do that. So making a bow front was something that I'd never tackled before. And I figured, well, I better make some sort of model or something like that. Another thing I had never done is done curved drawer fronts. And so that was something that I've never done. And the third thing that I haven't done an awful lot of is mortise and tenon joints. And I know that if you build mortise and tenon joints together like this, if they aren't really, really good, you'll end up building this one a little off square, and then this one's a little more off square, and then they get really awful. And you know, you end up with kindling. So I thought, well, I better tackle that too. So the next iteration was just 3 of the drawers using some of the joints that I would be using in the tansu. So this is full scale, but of course it's only 2 or 3 of the 6 drawers or whatever. The other thing I've never done is since I wanted the drawer to curve, I didn't want a big fat piece of wood here, especially if it was going to be finished wood, because you know that makes the wood more expensive. And I thought, well, okay, if I can make a box, a rectangular, or not a rectangular box, but a flat-sided box, then I can glue, you know, a thick veneer to it and put the curve in the thick veneer. That was great, but I had never done a sort of trapezoidal shaped dovetail all the way around. So that's another reason why I built the model, was to figure out how to mark that out and how to make it happen. The joinery on the corners, typically of the Japanese style, was never dovetails. You find very few dovetails in Japanese work. What it is a very open box joint. And so typically what you'd see is a box joint that's got 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch wide box members, and then they'd be drilled and they'd be pegged. So that's what the whole thing's going to be made with. So learned a bunch in the process. I learned that making the angled dovetails wasn't too bad. You could lay those out fairly well. And once you lay them out, then it's a matter of just sawing and chopping. What I learned too about fitting a flat piece of wood to a curved surface was that using a hand plane, and I love to use hand planes, it makes, you know, you think in terms of using a hand plane with the grain. As it turns out, it is much easier to put the lines, you know, make your lines on the board and cut crossways, what they call traversing. And so I was able to use a hand plane and actually get a pretty nice match to the curve. So now I know I can do it at least once in a piece of pine. And the next step is to figure out what the pretty wood's going to be and go from there. So any questions from out there and here? Okay.
Great. You
Yeah.
did work.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Oh, we all do. You guys too. Oh, that's all right.
Everyone else will get a applause.
Absolutely. You guys too. All right, give you back. Give her.
All right, we're going to move this back. You're going to be the cameraman here, huh?
Wherever you want that.
All right, Jerry, you want to introduce our speaker?
Okay, might be better if I were a disembodied voice off screen. So I'm delighted to introduce Connie Mcguire. Connie is first of all, Connie was born and raised in Montana. So she comes to us from a place where the object of her art, birds and other wildlife, I guess, she grew up knowing intimately. Connie now lives in Grand Mound, and we're very fortunate to have her here this evening. She made her first appearance for our guild at our picnic this summer on July 17th, and only had a few minutes to show us one of her carved birds. And I think we all thought we would love to have her come and take more time to talk with us about her carving. So she's agreed to do that. So without further ado, Connie Mcguire.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor being among fellow dusty woodworkers. It's hard to come by. I'm just retired from accounting. After 20, 30, 40 years of different levels, I've had my own company. I was CFO of several companies. I love the sawdust. It's so nice. I can be out in the shop, which I'll show you pictures of. And my husband has to come out and say, dinner, it's dinner time. And I'll walk out and it's dark. I've been there for hours. So. No, he's not. I'm gonna have to work on that. So it's a pleasure, a hobby. It's not the only one, but it's one that I can do. I did while I was working. It was something that is you can focus. It's left brain, right brain type of exercise. So you get a more balanced psyche, in my opinion. And a little bit about me. Also in Montana, I did. We grew up with the Indians in Swan Lake area, which was an awesome way of saying that we went to their schools. Sometimes we rode their ponies without saddles, and it's kind of a way of saying, well, we learned about Zen early. So that follows through with all kinds of life lessons. You don't give up, you keep going. If it becomes kindling, you build a nice fire with it. You just don't stop. So, so with that, master of the Zoom, Bill, would you show the wood shop, the second slide, actually. So I'm on 5 acres in Grand Mound, and husband, of course, we have a huge shop. Half of it is for cars, and then he built us first it was called a wood room, and then it was called a craft room, and now it's my studio. However, it's shared. And okay, a disclaimer here, I don't use the big saws and the big machines and stuff because fingers are important in accounting. So he does that for me. He'll use the first row of stuff. We've got drill presses, and we've got several different types of table saws, and there we go. And almost, there we go.
So I'm going to share the screen.
table saws and chop saws and band saws and all kinds of sawdust. And you'll notice in these pictures that we are not too concerned with cleaning except once in a while. So you'll see scraps of wood on the floor, which I have been known to come and pick things out of saying, oh, I want this for a base, or I can do this. Because part of carving is putting the birds, I choose birds, but I've also done otters and foxes and things that I like the flow of. So that tends to be my inspiration. Okay, so we kind of got that one. So now we'll go to slide number 2. And that is my area. Okay, that's where everything here happens. So we'll start with the front beginning right-hand corner. I've just kind of laid out a few of the things. I would use those for, oh, no, to back you go. Huh? We're not ready for that one. You're getting ahead of me. Yes, that's it. So the bottom right is some potential base material that I kind of have laying around thinking, okay, I've got this bird, I can put it on that base. The next is a pile of magazines, and I'll show you some of those. I have been lucky enough to be recipient of a master carver after he passed, and he has volumes of these books. Wildfowl Carving is the name of them. It's an awesome source for not only inspiration, but patterns and the current artists and the current shows. So I use that a lot. The next is, the machine is the, what do you call that? It's a, thank you, an oscillating sander. Yes, yes, yes. And that thing makes short work of turning square blocks into round pieces. Yes, that is awesome. And then I have underneath that table, I have a vacuum that will hook up so to kind of control a little bit of the sawdust. And then you'll see on the workbench, to the far end of the workbench is another box with a stuff on top of it. Yes, 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 yes. That also is from that wood carver. That is also a dust control box. It's got a filter in front of it, and so it grabs everything from my workbench there and sucks it through. So it kind of eliminates dust. When I go out there, I still have to do Vicks in the nose and a mask, because I will end up with sawdust cough. It's okay, I'll take care of it. The thing that's missing on the wall is usually I will have pictures plastered of my current project. Right now I've got a bunch of otters up there and owls. I've got owls up there. It's always important to have a lot of reference pictures to help you as you go through. So now and then underneath there is some buffing wheels and some more boxes of blocks and lots of fun stuff. Okay, next one, please. Master of the Zoom. We'll do the next slide.
We were, if you want to do the next slide.
There. And that is just a close-up of, and I didn't clean that bench for this picture, but that's just a close-up of some of the materials that I use. You'll see to the mid-left, there's a couple of cutouts that I will be working on. I think those are cardinals. I usually try to do 2 or 3 of a bird at a time, because it takes, each one is different. I learn things from each bird or whatever I'm doing. So I kind of like to do multiple so that, well, they never come out the same, but at least I know that I can use what I made mistakes on the first time to improve as I go. I sell my birds or whatever I have mostly at Splash Gallery downtown. So whatever I produce, I don't have to have it sitting around, and it gets on display, finds a home, as I put it. And then the white machine there I brought with me, that's the Fordham micro motor. I used to do It's awesome. It's got I used to do Dremel. I started out with Dremel and knives and such, but the handheld Dremel shakes. I mean, it will vibrate. And by the time you're done, you can't do the detail and your hand hurts. So with that Fordham, the motor is in the box and not in the hand. So I can do much more detail. I'll go over that later. Okay, let's see. Am I still coming through okay? Zoom people?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we'll go on me, not the slides, if that can work.
All right.
So I wanted to show you more tools here. If I could have my assistant here, please. So the Fordham, the original Fordham, yes, is one that hangs from, the motor hangs up. You've got a foot control, and then your hand, yes, the hand piece is there. And I use that to take out big chunks. I do that all the time. I can tell you the thing bounces. Yeah. if it sizzles when I get home, I'll know what happened. But the hand piece is adjustable. I can put different types of yes, I can. Okay, Mr. Assistant, I can put different types of grindy things in there, burrs and sandpaper stuff, and smoothing stones. But mostly that one I use the big stuff. I mean, I've got some that will take an arm off if you're not careful. So that one will take wood off like crazy. And I do use that a lot. It's so rough.
What's that made out of?
This is ceramic.
Ceramic?
Yes,
Can I see it?
it's really sharp.
Really, really is. Can I pass it around?
Yes. And then this one is, pass that one around too, but that one is, they call that a saber. That's also a steel burr. That one takes off a lot of stuff as well. This is the same style of material, careful with it, but just a different shape. Yeah. And then I have sanding stones that are very, that's only one. I mean, okay, and then we have this. I'll have you hold this one up for me so they can see it, please. And this is the newer version. This is my favorite with the hand piece. That one also has different colettes that can change the shaft of the burrs that go into it. And it is controlled by the little white thing. You can make the speed go up and down. A lot of these burrs have speeds at which they are more effective than others. If you go too fast, it'll burn rather than cut. So I've learned a lot.
So this is, the speed is rheostat?
Rheostat controlled, yes. Yeah, very, very handy and very quiet. And I can carve a long time without having the shaken syndrome, which is very disconcerting to try and get things done. But it's a lifesaver, that one is. So that's a lot of that. Let's see. So now we also have, let's do the wood burning one next. I do, and this is also from my deceased friend in his supply. It's a Colville wood burning with also a rheostat. Very, very old, very dependable, works like crazy. And I have a lot of different points for that. Each of the points will be a specific job, which sometimes I don't care. I just burn away. And if it comes out too dark, then I know to turn it down. Those pens are, they pull apart. The pen disconnects here, so you can have your choice of pens afterwards. Different textures created, mostly specifically for feathers and stuff. Oh, and I have to show off my box. Okay, this box. That also is from my wood carver friend, but I couldn't replace it, so I finally wore it out and I put blue tape on it just to keep it going. Hey, it's all about being authentic, you know. So some of the other things I use is for measurements, you have to be sometimes specific. If you don't want the bird to be lopsided, you got to halfway be an engineer to make sure that the angles and the measurements are right. So that is extremely important. And of course, we do lots of sanding. Oh, okay, we'll go to sanding. My most important sanding is, those are store-bought emery boards that you use for fingernails. Those are the most awesome things for sanding details. However, I do have this as well. I don't know if that will come through, but that is just pieces of sandpaper glued to a little stick. And so I can get in and under hard to reach places and get them all sanded smooth. That's not my design. I got it out of one of the books, but I thought it was awesome. So I use lots of sandpaper. I used to just take the birds from the one point where I thought, okay, it's done. And then I learned to take a digital picture of it. And that was eye-opening, because you can see each and every little piece of fuzz and each and every line that's not what it should be. And you kind of have to do that before you paint. Otherwise, the paint's going to show all those things up. Okay, how about wood? So the wood I use is, thank you for doing that. I have the best assistant ever. So this is basswood. I use it, most carvers use it because it has a grain, but it doesn't have a lot of knots, and it doesn't have a lot of pitch, and it's soft enough to carve with this material, with these tools, but also strong enough that it holds edges. And that's kind of the beauty. The other wood that I would use if I had more resources for it, it's a little more expensive. It's called tupelo, and it comes out of the south. It's a tree that is very spongy, but comes out like this. So let's see what I have. Okay, so let me show this. So when I go to make an item like a bird, I'll just say birds, I would go through and find, here we go. I would find what I want, and if it isn't quite what I want, I will do different, I'll make the pattern a little bit different. So I'm really, really fond of chickadees. So I would do, so I found a chickadee pattern, and this is baby chickadees here in this book. Well, I didn't use that pattern, I used that for paint, but I would make a pattern I'd take a pattern, I would draw it and put it on tracing paper, but then I'd also make patterns out of, I'd then copy that onto, they call it transfer paper, and it is actually, you can see through it. So the little birds, you can hold that up to the block of wood that you're doing. There you go. And you can trace that pattern onto the block of wood. And then as you're carving, you check with that pattern against your design and make sure you're getting close to it. So it helps keep you on track, keeps me on track. So this is before it's cut. This is a pattern drawn on the piece of basswood. Now you might notice on this one, I did this for an example so I'd remember to talk about it. This is incorrect on how the grain is laid out. If I was going to do this one, I would have a heck of a time making the top smooth, and it weakens the beak because it's the wrong grain. It goes against the beak. I'd probably end up making kindling out of that thing. So that's step one. And so then we take it, husband would take it from this chunk and make it smaller, and I give him this to cut with the bandsaw. And then that's what it comes out to be when he has done with it. So it gets close to the pattern and it's all not squared off. He even gets so tricky with that he cuts on a curve so that I can kind of get the bill right. He makes it easy for me. And this is the same state as that one, a bigger bird. This would be an owl. So the owl that I had brought for the picnic started out a little like that. Very square. And it's really an exercise in faith to take a block and say, okay, I can make this round and I can carve it, because at some point you say, I can't do it. I just can't do it. It's square. I can't do it. So it's helpful to have your pattern up and say, okay, just keep cutting, just keep cutting, just keep cutting. And then you eventually end up with something that looks like what you started. So this is not done. I brought this to show you that it's how I begin texturing it. I've got the shape, I've used the pattern, I've got it pretty much to the right, what I think is right. And now I'm starting to cut in the design and the detail with different different burrs, and from there it will go smaller and smaller and smoother and smoother. And this is really where knowing the bird is exactly important, because you've got to see how the wings are this one has a wing that's down, so you got to know each and every feather that happens to be on that bird. Owls are different than most birds because owls have a head that's got a dished face, and they have the back muscles are different. The wings are held differently. They've got the ears. Some of them have the ears. Owls' ears are actually placed not centered on their head, but one is back farther than the other. That's why they're such good night hunters. So this one will go through a lot of texturing and a lot of feather placement and things that it needs to have.
Can you pass that?
Oh, yeah. Is it okay to pass that?
Yeah. And then this little guy is one more step beyond what that owl is. So it's got a lot of little small detail. It's not done either. But you can see where I use the wood burning to do the feather detail. And in this little bird, it'll have wing layers that are cut in with the wood burner. And then I use, as well as, so the little feathers. One of the things I like about chickadee babies and baby birds is you really can make them as fluffy and as unkempt as you want. They're not the same. They're not the same. So if I make a mistake on that thing, I can just make it fluff and it's going to be fine. That's where paint comes in.
Jerry? How many hours do you put into one of these?
The chickadees, I've gotten to where it just takes me like a day and a half, including paint. It used to take me like 4 days to do them, but practice and practice and practice. The owls, my first owl took a month of, and I started him a couple of weeks after I retired. And so as soon as I stopped falling asleep on the couch, I thought it was time to go out in the shop and work. There is a real thing about being tired after working, I tell you. So that one will just take me probably another hour to sand it and get it painted. So the paint that I use is the brand name is Josonia. It's what the only course I've ever taken is from Ellensburg Northwest Cascade. No, Ellensburg Carving Academy, and Jerry Simchuk is one of the premier carvers, and I took a week's session from him where we went in every day, 8 hours a day, and we did, I think it was a nuthatch, and that entirely changed how I did things and how they came out. So it was worthwhile. I didn't even learn it on YouTube. I learned it from books and from having a knife in my hand at 4 years old trying to carve stuff away. So, but that was awesome. It was a good session, and I'd probably do another one. I was going to until COVID came.
I have a question from Gloria. Where can I find patterns? I want to do a beaver and a manta ray.
So those are awesome. The manta rays are awesome. I brought a catalog. That catalog from Northwest Carvers Supply, and they have every pattern that you want to think about. So Northwest Carvers Supply, here we go. Cascade Carvers Supply. There's also others, Hummel Carving Supply, HUMMEL Carver Supply does awesome job as well. Cascade Carvers, they're out of Ellensburg, so they're local. They go to a lot of the shows throughout the United States. Nice people, very helpful. I can recommend them. But they would have a lot of your patterns, and wood and tools and all the fun stuff. So let's see. So I also brought, except for the really little ones where I use beads, I do buy eyes, glass eyes. If you would show them that, please. And I get them from, that one will go in the owl that we just saw. And I get them for different sizes, depending on what I think I'm going to be working on. Some of them come with wires and some of them don't, but they come by size. So when you have your pattern figured out, it's important to know what size of things. So when I do a project, I didn't have it here, but I will put on I will have a folder for each project that I do. And I will put on the front of it, okay, this is my accounting background. I will put what it is, what size eyes, what size feet, what color paint, and then I'll go through my supplies and see if I need anything of those. So if I don't have it in here and I want to get doing on something, I best be prepared. So I'm prepared in advance, and then I'll check it off. And I'm still an accountant after all. I also occasionally will do. I'm not good at yet practice with soldering. So a lot of times the feet, I will buy the feet. They're pewter. They come in different sizes, all the way from my little chickadee feet to that one, I believe, is a dove. Now, the thing with pewter feet is when they're small, they're really pretty bendable. But when they're big, like those feet or an owl feet, they are not bendable. You can't bend them without breaking them off. So at some point when I do the bigger ones, I'm gonna solder. I promise I'm gonna solder.
I have a question on
Yes.
Zoom. What,
Yes, what's your-
Connie's left the 2 blocks of wood. What type of wood is that? Is it easy to practice on, and where did she get it?
The question was, what kind of wood is it that you're using there? And is it easy to practice on, and where do you get it?
So this is basswood,
It's basswood. All of it's basswood that she brought in.
and it is very easy to practice. It's soft,
It's,
much of a grain.
it's very easy to practice on. It's soft without a lot of grain.
And I get it from places like the Cascade Carvers or Hummel.
Cascade Carvers or Hummel.
I could not
Cascade
hear the
Carvers.
name of the wood.
Basswood.
Bass. Okay, thank you.
So apparently, no matter what hobby you're in, or no matter what, it's just like when we were listening to how you do the Japanese, or the project you have there, you need to know about your subject. So if you don't know all of the parts of where you're going in, like the bird, that thing has so many kinds and layers of feathers and pieces and parts. Even the little eyelids have names, and the little feathers around the eyelids have names, and each of the toes have names. So the more you know about it, the better off you can represent it. So rays, if you're going to do a manta ray, that thing is awesome in its pieces. I would highly recommend, and you're already looking for programs, but that is got its own little bit of biology to know, anatomy. So that's just my words of wisdom. The more I know. And that's what that class did for me, is it says you got to pay attention. It's got feathers here. You have to know what that is and how they fit in with the rest of the bird. Because if you get into different aspects of the wings up or the wings down, you have to know how those feathers lay and which feathers you're going to be carving. Anyway, that's my lesson to myself. Okay, next slide. We do next slide. So the next one is my first owl, the one that got to come here. It's kind of a premier example of texturing and paint. That thing took 2 days, just 2 days of pre-paint and then another day of paint. And I couldn't even do that until after I'd taken the pictures and say, okay, the texturing, because the feathers, owls have a magical way of disappearing right in front of your eyes. And I tried to get that to happen so that the camouflage of it is evident with the different color layers. I did use my pattern book, but you still have to know how they are going to turn out with paint. And that was, I've had a lot of people say, is that ceramic? Is that ceramic or is that real? I don't want to, I'm excited that they do that. So a little bit about bases too. It is on a base of rhododendron branch, and that's what it's sitting on. And then the bottom layer is a sample of flooring that a friend was going to have her floor done, and she was going to toss that out. So I said, no, I can use that. So yes. So that's the base on it there. Next slide will give you, because that's part of the whole thing as well, is after you carve the bird, or even some of the experts say before you carve the bird, you should have an idea of what you're going to do with it. Is it going to be big and sitting on a big branch, or is it going to be smaller and it's going to be hidden away? So then we're ready for that. So these are some examples of bases of what I've done. You'll see the otter there is on a resin with a log. So the resin is meant to look like water, and there's actually 2 otters there. So I had to plan that one. Someone had sent me a picture and said, do this, you can do this. So so that's how it came out. But you kind of use pieces of wood that you have around to kind of to incorporate what you have. The one to the right, the bluebird, he is actually hanging on the wall. It's a half of a fence post that he actually is sitting on. And then I soldered and painted and cut out brass leaves. So those are brass that I did. I could get away with that because you can also use twisty things to keep them on. The one on the bottom is a little teal duck. I didn't paint a lot of that. It was, I just used an oil finish on it. So it brought out the wood. That was Tupelo. That's a Tupelo bird. And it is just sitting there. It's not on any kind of a base. So that's an option, especially for the bigger ones, especially ducks that are flat sitters. The one to the bottom left is a little Australian wren, and he is on a small base with a fake bit of flowers, and he also hangs on the wall. So he can either be flat or he can hang on the wall. A lot of people at the gallery have told me, make it so that it hangs on the wall, because people like that. They can come in and it's not sitting, getting dust on some shelf. So that's what I use. I have people coming in to visit me at the gallery. One guy he's got some grapevine for me from Oregon to use. So there's no end of supply of bases. And I think that is all I have for you. I'm open for questions.
So what would you say is the kind of main advantage you've gained through experience? You've been doing this for a few years now. I mean, one thing you noted was that you can do it more quickly. Are there other advantages to being experienced?
Awesome. So the question was, what are the advantages to having long-time experience in carving? That I had mentioned, one was that you can do it faster. And so the question was, what are other advantages? So I would say the advantage is if you get better at it, you pay more attention to all of the pieces, like that picture that had the parts of the bird. When I first started, I knew, 5 of them is all I could do. And each one I do, I'd be able to look at it and say, that's not quite right. And it trains your eye to use the pattern and go and become much more efficient at it. Like I was saying, Jerry Simchuk, he carves the little bitty feathers underneath the eyes. I mean, they have little bitty feathers in there. So it also gives you more confidence to do more things instead of just a straight bird. It gives you, maybe the next one will have its wings open. So it's an endless journey that you can go on. The other thing with having the wildfowl carving, there's always somebody that is so much better, that does so much better, that has more ideas. So the more you do, the better you can progress. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Any other questions I can help with? Did I leave anything out? Any online Zoom questions? No questions, no questions. So thank you again for having me here. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting me spout.
Okay, I would just reiterate a point that I neglected to mention. Connie mentioned it briefly. Her work is exhibited here in Olympia at the Splash Gallery, which is out on the harbor area. If you haven't been there, you could go see examples of Connie's work there. Thank you. Thank you, Connie. I'll just say a word about the next meeting that's scheduled for December 6th. The guest artists, we're staying in the domain of shaping wood. Christian Burchard is a wood sculptor down in Ashland, Oregon. I ran into his work in Whidbey Island in a gallery there. His approach to sculpture is quite different than Connie's. Connie's approach is to recreate the image of a thing, sort of a realism approach. Christian comes at it differently. He takes wood, cuts it, shapes it into something other than what that wood might have reminded you of in the beginning. It's just fantastic. So Christian will be joining us on December 6th. If you recall, we do not have a late November meeting in consideration of Thanksgiving. And so our November meeting is coupled with our December meeting, and this year it's scheduled for December 6th.
I guess that's the end of our meeting tonight. It's about 20 after 8. Thank you for our Zoom attendees. It looks like we got 7 or 8 there. I hope this was a better experience than it was the last time. So, I see some thumbs up and some clapping out there. It worked out a little better. It's good to get together again. We do hope that you can make our next meeting on December the 6th. And I guess I'm going to call the meeting to close, except those of us who are here can certainly take some time and ask Connie some more questions.